Hey guys, this is Tom with DraftMagic.com, and I'm going to be doing an 8-4 M12 draft this morning. We should be starting in just a second. Okay, here we are for Pack 1. Notable cards in this pack, we've got Skin Shifter, we have Cudgel Troll, but I think the strongest card here by far is the Fireball. Just the most versatile, it's one of the strongest uncommons in this set, and easily splashable, so we're going to go ahead and pick up the Fireball. Here we have a pretty easy pick. I think that Gorhorn Minotaurs is by far the strongest card here. I mean, there are some other strong cards. We have, the Llanowar Elves, we have the Assault Griffin, but Gorhorn Minotaurs is kind of a unique card in this set because if you can get it into play as a 5/5, it's such a huge threat, and I think that red is just one of the deepest colors here also. So very happy to pick up the Minotaurs. Here we have a few interesting picks. We've got Blood Ogre, we have Fire Slinger, Stormfront Pegasus, we have the Chasm Drake, but I think here that actually it's the Blood Ogre by a decent amount. This is a card that I've just been more and more impressed by, and it's one of the only cards that has First Strike in this set. Being able to get a 3/3 First Strike online on turn 3 is just so powerful. It can give you so much momentum, and I'm happily going to pick up the Blood Ogre here. If we can craft our deck with, pretty much an open 3-drop slot, there aren't that many 3-drops that you really want, and this is definitely one of the best ones. So here we have Unsummon, Peregrine Griffin. We have seen a little bit of white at this point. We've seen the Stormfront Pegasus come along. Goblin Chieftain is just a fine card as well. We can just take the Goblin Chieftain at this point just to stay committed. I think that this card can definitely do some good work just because there are a lot of goblins that you do want to play in the red archetype. So we're going to go ahead and grab the Chieftain here and stay open. Here we could pick up the Hellhound. We could also look at grabbing Garrick's Companion, for instance. Red-green is not my favorite color combination. However, that being said, there's a lot of there is a lot of potential synergy in red-green. So I think we're just going to grab the Garrick Companion here. It's very good for turning on Bloodthirst with the Trample, and so I think that that's going to be a decent pick for us. I'm not seeing a lot right here. The strongest card in this pack is Stave Off. We did see a fair amount of white come by, so I think that it's definitely going to be a stronger card than really anything else here. So we're just going to go ahead and grab the Stave Off, just try to keep our options open and see what comes. So here we have Trollhide. Haven't got too much of a chance to play with Hunter's Insight, but I mean I've seen this card do good work. We have the Armored Warhorse if we want to go like a red-white shell, but I think the Trollhide might be a little better than the Armored Warhorse here. So we're going to go ahead and pick that up. Okay, here we do see the Pegasus come back. Oh, I'm sorry, we see another Pegasus here. Divination is quite good also. We've seen a little bit of black as well. I think we're just going to grab the Pegasus, even though we did pass the Armored Warhorse, just because there's no real green cards I want to take here. And it's much stronger than Brindlebore. Okay, at this point, we could grab Lava Axe. We have Fiery Hellhound. Griffin Rider is an interesting card. This is a strategy that I've been sort of interested in looking at. Picking up a Griffin Rider late, trying to grab a number of Griffins, and if you can get like 5 or more Griffins, the Griffin Rider can be quite a powerful card. I definitely am not sure if it's going to happen. It's going to come together, but I think that it's worth trying here, and if we end up seeing the Griffins, it can really come together. So here we're just going to grab the other Rider. Part of the thing that I think that's interesting about M12 drafting is, there's a lot of different potential little synergies that you can put together, many of which that I haven't explored actually. And you know, I've definitely run into decks that have abused Griffin Rider, but you know, by no means does that make it a strong, you know, early pick. But if you can get, you know, 4 or 5, I mean, you can definitely run it. So here we're just going to happy to pick up the second Blood Ogre. Fits our curve perfectly. It's exactly what we want to see. You know, hopefully we can maybe pick up like a Piker on the way back. Timely Reinforcements is also a very strong card, but I think that the Blood Ogre is going to be a little bit better. Here there's a number of cards we could look at, but I think we're just going to go ahead and take the Pegasus here. You know, we definitely are a little bit more into white at this point than green. I mean, we could pick up like the Sacred Wolf here. We already have a decent 3-drop slot though, and I think that the white might go a little bit farther for us. You know, other notable cards are Sorin's Thirst, Ring Flesh, but I mean, we're just going to grab the Pegasus here. Okay, and here is a Griffin we're happy to pick up. If we do decide to, you know, get the Griffin Rider plan underway, you know, we are going to need a number of Griffins. And it's a fine card in its own right. Active Treason is also good in this setup, but I'm happy to pick up the Griffin here. And here's an Assault Griffin that we're happy to pick up as well. We are now seeing a fair amount of black. I mean, we're seeing another Sorin's Thirst, there's a Doomblade here, but I think at this point we are sufficiently committed to red-white. So we're just going to go ahead and hide the green and hide the land here. And red-white can really kind of give you a nice aggressive shell. Pretty much any strategy where you can take advantage of Bloodthirst in one way or another really can just put you ahead. This is definitely a format where I feel like it's correct to be on the play. Here we're very happy to pick up a Goblin Arsonist. What you really want for this kind of deck is, you know, a nice 1- and 2-drop slot so you can start activating that early Bloodthirst. And I think that'll go a long way for us. Nothing too much for us to pick up here. We can grab an Oromancer, you know, potentially pick up like another Warpaint or something along that lines a little bit later. Here we're happy to grab the third Griffin. So now it's really coming together, and we might be able to really run the Griffin Riders here. If we're able to pick up maybe 1 or 2 more Griffins, you know, this is really a strategy that I've wanted to explore and just see if it's viable. Here we have, let's see, 2 Goblins so far. We could pick up the Goblin Grenade in hopes of picking up, you know, a few more Goblins. I think even with, you know, 3 or 4 Goblins, this is a very playable card. We could also look at potentially grabbing the Thran Golem if we see, you know, their Warpaint or potentially like a Divine Favor. You know, that could be a nice late drop for us. The Warhorse is a fine card as well. So we have a decent number of options here. I think that what I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to grab the Warhorse just because I want to make sure we get that early Bloodthirst triggering. So, you know, you want to make sure you have a nice, pretty full early drop slot. There certainly are good arguments for the other 2 cards as well, but yeah, I think I'm just going to go with the Warhorse there. You know, seeing that other Warpaint, you know, it definitely could have been correct to take the Thran Golem as well. So just not knowing if that was going to come back or what was going to happen there. But I think that the Warhorse will be fine. Okay, so here we are for pack 3. A lot of powerful cards for us. You know, we have the Assault Griffin here, we have Gideon's Lawkeeper, we have Blood Ogre, we have Gorehorn Minotaurs. I think that the strongest card for us is going to be the Minotaurs. You know, I've got a chance to see Lawkeeper, and it's definitely a very powerful card. but it does combo a lot better with like Gideon's Lawkeeper, of which we haven't seen any at this point. So, by no means does that make it a bad card, but I think that, the Minotaurs is going to be a little bit better for us. It fits our curve perfectly, and it's just so overwhelming if you can get it into play, with that Bloodthirst. So we're going to grab the Minotaurs here. Here we're happy to pick up a Chandra's Outrage. We're sad to pass the Griffin, but Chandra's Outrage is one of the best removal here for us, and we have to take it. Okay, so passing a Mind Control is never something that you should feel good about, but at the same time, Blood Ogre is really going to go to work for us. I think it's going to be stronger than the Veteran. The Vanguard is also a good argument for picking up the Vanguard here, just to make sure we get that. This is actually kind of close. I think we might be a little better off with the Vanguard just because we don't have that early 1-drop slot just filled yet. If we already had more Fire Slingers and more Arsonists, I'd feel a bit better about taking the Blood Ogre, but I think we need the Vanguard for our curve. Hopefully we'll be able to pick up maybe another Griffin here at some point. I'm happy to grab the Stave Off here. We don't have... Well, we have double Warpaint, but we already have a pretty full 3-drop slot, so I think we're just going to grab the more versatile card here. Stave Off is definitely a card I'm happy to play 2 or more of. It's so good, it's so versatile, it can do so many things for you that it's always a great card. Okay, so at this point we're very happy to pick up the Griffin Sentinel. Arsonist is definitely a great card for us, but I think if we are going to get serious about the Griffin Rider plan, Sentinel is he's the perfect card to fit into that curve. Because if we can go turn 2 Rider, turn 3 Sentinel, we can just really stay aggressive. And this is a very powerful card in this format also because one of the few cards with Vigilance and really able to put us ahead on the tempo race. Here, happy to pick up a Piker. Mighty Leap is a fine card also, but we have the Goblin Chieftain. Once again, just want to make sure that Bloodthirst really connects. Tunneler is just fine for what we want to do. So, at this point, we're already at 27 playables. We should be able to make some cuts here. Probably not going to be running Guardian's Pledge, just because we have a fairly even split of creatures here. We might end up running it, just depending, but nothing too exciting here. Probably just going to cut the Ice Cage. And actually, we could run Divine Favor here. Circle of Flame is a fine sideboard card, actually. It's not bad. But I think we'll just grab the Divine Favor. We could pick up Manic Vandal for the board. Manolith is probably not the worst either. I think we're a little bit too aggressive to worry about Manolith, though. So I think Manic Vandal might be a little better for us. Very unusual to see this Goblin Grenade come this late. At this point, we do potentially have up to 4 different goblins, which is enough to run a grenade, I believe. So we will see you for deck building in just a minute. Okay, here we are at 25. This is probably going to be a deck where we are going to want 16 land. You want to have that nice high threat density, especially with this kind of aggressive deck. I think that I'm not going to run the Auramancer main, partially just because if we're up against a deck that has a fair amount of bounce or removal, we could certainly side into it if we need to. If we don't see much removal, we can bring in the Auramancer and the Warpaint combo. Not sure if this deck needs Slaughtercry. It is a fine card. We have a lot of good cards here, but I think that, you know, we just want to have enough creatures to really just sort of overload the board and then just be able to push through the extra damage. So right now, trying to find a card to cut here. I think that if we're going to be running the grenade, we need at least 4 goblins. Could potentially just run one of the Griffin Riders here, but I think that, you know, like I said, this is a strategy that I want to really try, see if it works, and just kind of see how it plays out. I think it could be a very strong little synergy here with the Griffins. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to cut the Warhorse. It is a nice early drop. It is double color. And, you know, the other thing we could look at doing is we could cut like the Fiery Hellhound. The Hellhound does have a little bit more synergy with like the Goblin Tunneler, but at the same time, you know, I think actually I'm just going to leave the Warhorse in. I'm going to cut the Hellhound, and that way we can make sure that we have a creature set up on turn 2 so that we can turn on the Blood Ogre on turn 3, you know, or the Minotaurs on turn 4. So I think this is going to be the 24 we're going to run. And Magic Online is saying 8/8. And I pretty much agree with that. I mean, we want the, you know, the white early for the Vanguard, but it's a pretty even split. So I'm happy to run 8/8 here. And we will see you for round 1.